Hey all, here at OS Reviews. Today we're taking a closer look at the Odec OD-E6. These are TWS wireless buds which have active noise cancellation, and they sell for under 50 bucks. If you guys recall, just a few weeks back we checked out another pair of buds from this company called the OD-E8. Based on the name alone, you might think that the 8s are going to be more expensive or higher end than the 6, but that's actually incorrect. If you recall, the OD-E8s were the least expensive active noise cancellation buds that I've seen, selling for only 35 bucks. So for $15 more, what do you get? The short answer is better sound quality. The drivers on these are actually better than the 8s, and also they have slightly enhanced construction quality as well. The core features, including active noise cancellation, remains the same. There's also a low latency gaming mode like before, so we're able to have very little delay between the audio and the video that we're looking at, and there's also a reverse ANC mode that's called the ambient transparency mode, water resistance, so safe to use if you're sweating, if it's raining outside. And as far as controls are concerned, you can see here you can tap on it several times to trigger the ANC effects, as well as enter the gaming mode. However, you can't control the volume directly on these, unfortunately. So if you want to raise the volume higher or lower, you have to still turn over to your phone to do that, or use the voice assistant. Now here's actually a closer comparison again between this E6 that we're looking at today and the previous one that we checked out called the E8. So the difference here also includes a slightly larger battery. These buds can last for 7 hours on a full charge. If you have ANC turned on, the number is a little closer to 6 hours, and then with the battery case combined, you get up to 42 hours. In the box, of course, we have the buds themselves, which we'll take a closer look at. There's also a Type-C charging cable, pretty standard stuff, as well as some spare silicone tips to get a more snug fit, and finally just the user guide. As we take a closer look at the design of the casing here, I will say that again, at 50 bucks, this is still definitely a budget pair of ANC TWS buds. We can get an idea here in terms of the build. This one here had a more cheap glossy plastic shell versus this one has more of a matte finish over the plastic. It does feel slightly more sturdy, not quite as hollow, and we do have an accent here for the latch that you can pop open the door. It's also metal accented, and in the inside here there's also an LED light which will glow to tell you the battery status. It's a fun touch which is also missing on the cheaper E8s, which have just a more generic design overall. So if we pop in the charging port here, by the way, you can see the light here can also turn blue when it's currently charging. So I actually really like the attention to detail here. It just makes it feel slightly better put together, as well as just a bit more fun and premium than the previous edition. So we can open up the lid like this. We have some basic branding info on the inside, and the buds of course are held into place magnetically. They stay in place quite well, so it's not going to fall out even if you give it a light shake, and they can still be popped into place very easily using magnets. On the inside here we also have the ANC kind of proudly stamped, and if we take a closer look at the design of the buds themselves, we can see that they have still a shape which is slightly reminiscent of the Apple AirPod Pros, with a slight stem on the bottom here that also points one of the microphones closer to your mouth for picking up your voice if you're making a phone call, for example. And there's also a slight ridge on the side here that lets you know if you found the correct spot, which is touch sensitive, and you can use this to control the different elements like sound, as well as skipping track, answering phone calls. Although it's not a physical button, it's still touch sensitive. It still has a slight sensation since it's slightly raised from the surface of the design. So it's a simple but effective design overall, and quite ergonomic. So when you pop these in, you'll have a very good seal. In my testing, I was able to move around, kind of jump, and they still stayed in place without falling loose. At the same time, they felt very lightweight, so they won't really cause any strain or stress. Previous E8s that we saw versus these E6, you can see that the stem design is slightly different. The previous E8s had a more flat tapered edge versus these, which are slightly more rounded off, and again a slight accent here which is translucent for the touch control versus it being completely flat. Moving into audio quality and performance, as alluded to, there's definitely a difference here compared to the less expensive E8s. For lack of a better word, they just have more resolution and detail to the sound, especially in the mids and trebles. You're able to delineate between more parts of the music, tiny details which are often compressed and sound a little bit tinny and muffled on the E8s by comparison. Of course, the E8s aren't bad sounding by any means, especially considering their ultra budget price, but these definitely give you more resolution, and so if you're more of an audiophile, these are definitely worth the extra $15 in my opinion for the significant boost in audio performance. The bass is also present, so you have a nice punch when you're listening to a drum beat. Low frequency sounds are good, but never overpowering, again, the mids and trebles. Sometimes gives you the effect that you're using larger headphones rather than something so small. They're also very good in terms of not producing any static, hissing, or humming in the background, so aside from the music itself, you won't hear any interruptions, which is great, including for watching videos on YouTube and Netflix. The audio and video were synced together nicely, and the presence of an extra gaming mode here is great. So again, if you tap 3 times, it will go into that low latency mode, and it does work pretty well, even if you're playing games like PUBG or something that's more fast-paced. And in terms of audio codec supported, it has SBC and AAC, which are standard, coming with Bluetooth 5.0, but as expected, again, at this price, it doesn't have aptX since it isn't using a Qualcomm chip. But again, since it does have a low latency gaming mode already, you're not really losing too much, I'd say. Now moving into the active noise cancellation part, overall they are also effective, but this part I didn't feel to have a huge difference compared to the aforementioned cheaper E8 lower frequency sounds, such as fan noises, engine sounds. If you're in a car, will definitely get dampened and you're able to listen to the music with much more comfort without turning the volume up as high. However, higher frequency sounds like humans' voices will still pass through. It's not really canceled by ANC technology. Overall, it's not an industry leader in this area. For example, some of Bose's and Sony's ANC buds will definitely do a more effective job, but again, for something so cheap, not bad, and it does make a difference when you flick it on, albeit it's not really improved versus the E8s in that regard. So overall, I think these details add up to something that will be worthwhile if you want something with better audio quality, and again, you still don't have to really break an arm or a leg to get something like this, since it still is very affordable at the end of the day. So you can check out more details if you're interested in the links down below, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews, yet another pair of solid active noise cancellation enabled TWS buds in the budget segment.